hints here over some vocab. So go ahead and pull out your Adobe Express note. Don't know what it looks like. I'll show you. If you don't have one, make sure you grab one from up front. This is what it looks like here. This guy, okay? If you don't have this, grab one up front. Video. Then here we go. Hopefully you have made the rest of your sketchbook. If you have not, please watch the video on how to finish it up. All of the supplies you will need are in the very back of the classroom on the cutting table. A basket full of scissors, string, awls, and anything else you would need. If you need paper, that is located at the front of the room. This video is right here on visible your sketchbook. Okay. We are going to talk about sketchbook cover requirements. Things that you need to know. Size has to be 8.5 by 11. Has to be made on Adobe Express. Getting ready to do a demo after this to show you that. Your first full name has to be on it. We'll talk about 1 to 3 themes that you could include, 1 to 3 colors you could include, how to unify it using color and theme, creating minimal negative space, how to balance it, and how to emphasize one item. Okay. On your note sheet, let's see if I have this lined up in any normal order. Somewhat. Nope. Really far over. Back up. Nope. Come on, camera. Okay, that's not bad. On this left side is where we're going to be looking at. So for Unity, that is right here on your note sheet. Unity, what you need to know is separate parts coming together to make it feel whole. So good example here is this image. We have the artist. She's wearing orange with black dots. She's in a space that is orange with black dots, and her artwork is orange with black dots. So she's trying to unify the space, herself, and the artwork, trying to make it feel whole, right? Or keeping a consistent color, and keeping those dots kind of repeating throughout. So Unity is taking separate pieces and trying to make it feel like it's coming together. Same thing down here. They're trying to unify it by stacking it up. They're containing each section in these really nice clean box, and then they're drawing or painting circles over and over and over again. So the repetition of shape here is trying to unify this entire artwork. Separate parts coming together and make it feel whole. We are going to learn how to do this with color and theme. Color, which is also on your note sheet right here, is just the element of art. It is light reflecting off of an object, and then your eye is perceiving the color. You see colors everywhere, every day, unless you are colorblind. If you are colorblind, please let me know. For color on our sketchbook cover, you need to be using a limited color palette to 1 to 3 colors. Some examples here. This cute little house in the middle is made of pink, greens, and then black. I will not count white or black against your limited color palette. So if you want to use both with 3 other colors, that is totally fine. Over here we have the rabbits, which are made from yellow and kind of this dark green. And then we have cactuses with green, pink, and yellow. Notice they do use a couple different shades. We have a dark green and a light green.
I am okay with that as long as they're pretty similar, okay? So 1 to 3 colors, black and white, do not count against you. So you could do these 3 and then add black and white to it. Theme, that I believe is also, nope, not on that part of the note sheet. Themes is just what do you want to incorporate on to your cover? It could be your hobbies or activities that you're interested in. Maybe you have a favorite food or an animal. Pick at least one theme. You could do a cat theme, sea theme, maybe plant theme. No more than 3. So you could combine all 3 of these. We could have cats, plants, and sea theme all happening on one. You just need to make sure that you are incorporating it consistently across your cover, like these guys are doing. They have lots of plants, lots of cats, lots of sea objects. That way your theme is very clear and evident, okay? Doesn't have to be one of these things, doesn't have to be anything over here. Kind of think about what you like and what you are interested in. Must be school appropriate. Other ways to unify that are not required, repeating the same shape over and over again. So if you repeat the same shape, kind of brings it in together. Using the same color, which we will be doing. And then if you use a pattern over and over again. Good sketchbook cover examples of unity. If we look at this one, can you guess what 3 colors the student decided to use? Yes, orange, blue, and then white. She did use 2 or 3 different variations of orange, 2 different variations of blue, but her color scheme is very clear, orange, blue, and white. What about over here? What colors are we seeing? I would say teal is very evident, gray, and then white and black, which I'm not counting against him to go over that 3. So gray and teal, and then white and black. So very, very good job with their colors here. What about themes over here? What do we think the theme is? There's a lot happening, right? We have airplane, boat, flowers, so maybe nature and outdoorsy stuff. Theme here could have been a little bit clearer. We have kind of like a sea motif. The flowers are repetitive, which is good. Plants are repetitive, but it's not completely clear here. Not terrible, but not completely clear. What about over here? What do we think the theme is, or multiple themes? We have the Dolphins. That is super clear. The NFL team happening. And then we also have 2 different programs back here that the student is interested in using. So a little bit of artwork and Dolphins happening. Very, very clear theme. Here, 1 to 3 colors. Really, right off the bat, you can tell it's pink and kind of this blue purple. They even incorporated that into the name. Over here, the colors get a little bit looser. I think I marked a couple points off on color. I would say blue, pink, and purple could have been a little bit more clear. What about themes happening? They have a music theme. They have lots of different album covers here. Very clear. Over here, we have 3 different themes. We have cameras, cats, and then sunsets. Very clear. All right, let's talk about space. Space is just the distance or the area, the emptiness in an artwork. This is on your note sheet. Space right here. It's good to have space because it sometimes helps make something stand out. And it also helps us break up when there's a lot of stuff happening. We have 2 different types of space, positive and negative. This image here does a really good job of showing you positive space versus negative space. Positive space is usually what's really close to us in the foreground and what the subject is. So we have the goat here filling in the positive space. Negative space is usually what is happening in the background. Okay, so if there's a sky or a field, a lot of that would be negative or unused space. Same thing over here, the positive space is our chair, negative space is anything in the background, even these white areas in between the spokes of the chair. Good examples here with positive and negative space. So the positive space are all of these colored shapes in the areas that are overlapping. Negative space is anything kind of empty behind. Same thing over here. We have lots of great positive space in the middle, negative space around the background. We want to make sure that we have a lot of positive space. There should be a lot happening, not a lot of empty space. The only negative space on this one, I would say, is the star inside of it, right? Same thing with this one, good positive space happening, not a lot of negative. Some of these pink areas behind the main flower and then the little flowers would be negative space. Over here on the right, we have way too much negative space. This should be filled with information. Okay, it should not be open and empty like this. Do not do that. This is a little bit better. We still have quite a bit of negative open empty space. Okay, you don't want to do this. We're aiming more for this. On your note sheet, I don't have a specific spot for positive versus negative space, but it's not a bad idea to write down what is what and you want positive. Okay, balance is also on your note sheet. We are going to talk about 3 different types of balance here. What you need to know about balance is it is the distribution of the weight of our visual objects. Okay, we're trying to balance our artwork visually. We don't want too much happening on one side and not enough happening on the other. We talk about symmetrical balance, asymmetrical, and radial balance. Symmetrical balance is where you could cut your image in half. It could be cut either vertically or horizontally. Doesn't work horizontally this way, but it does vertically. So you would cut it in half and it would be almost a perfect reflection. Okay, if I chop this butterfly in half, it's almost a perfect reflection. Asymmetrical balance is where the 2 sides, if we chop it in half, are very similar, but they are not a perfect reflection. But they are trying their best to visually balance. So we have a pretty heavy chunk of leaves here. They're adding in a pretty heavy chunk of leaves here. A little less up here, but not too much more. Down here, same thing. It's not a perfect reflection, but it's still almost evenly split. Last type of balance is radial. This is where the weight or the balance comes from a center point, and you're trying to kind of balance each slice of the pie. Okay, does not have to be a perfect mirror image in every slice, but again, the visual weight should be pretty similar. More examples of symmetrical. You can see how if I would cut this in half this way, I could fold it over, perfect reflection. Same thing the opposite way. Some good images up here. I chop in half here. Not an exact perfect reflection, but pretty safely close. Same thing here if I cut in the middle. Asymmetrical, you can see again, they are not perfect reflections, but they are pretty close to being balanced. These are good examples up here. If we look at the apples, we have this plate full of apples, and that obviously is not reflected or repeated on this side, but they're doing their best to balance it back out by placing a couple apples on this side. So if I were to split this in half, not too off balance because we have a couple apples here and a couple over here. Same with this wave image. If I were to split it in half right here, we have this really big wave happening and it's not happening on this side, but they're trying to pull this section of wave up and over to make sure that it feels almost balanced. They have this little tiny mountain in the back too to kind of help it out. More examples of radial balance here. Again, it's coming out from that center point and they're trying to kind of make each slice balance. This guy here is not a perfect piece. Not every single piece is the same, but you can see that they're including some of these lines in every section, some of this orange in almost every section, and then some of this blue. They're doing a pretty good job if I were to split this in half. This one is pretty much a mirror image repeated all the way around from that center point. Okay. We have different examples of balance here. Symmetrical. If I were to slice this in half and fold it over, it's almost perfect where I could have kind of a mirror image happening. Obviously, not every album cover is exactly the same, but for the most part, it's set up really symmetrically. Asymmetrical, if I cut this in half, we can see that it's not a perfect reflection, but they're doing a nice job at trying to evenly space a few cuts in the middle and then put a couple on each side to balance it out. Same with the cameras and the sunset photos. Radial, again, it's not perfect radial, but you can tell that the student is thinking about how can they keep each section really consistent. So they picked a pattern for every section and then kind of added in their interest around it and then kept the middle open. More examples here, cut in the middle, pretty symmetrical. Like cut in the middle, and we have squiggles here to balance out these squiggles. Airplane and cloud to balance out boat and flower, and then some of these middle elements to balance each other out. This one I'm counting as radial. Again, it's not perfect, but it starts kind of from the center point, and then they're building more circles around it, kind of heading out from that center. Okay. Next up on your note sheet is emphasis. Emphasis is what we use to attract a viewer's attention to one spot. Okay, so if you're wanting to make something stand out, you're wanting to emphasize it, that is what emphasis is. How can you make it stand out? You can do this by creating contrast. Contrast is just comparing two very different elements together. For example, we have color contrast here. All of these ponds are like a light muted brown, and then we have the night, which is a very, very dark brown. So we're creating color contrast. We could also talk about shape contrast. They have the ponds, all one shape, and they want you to look at the night, so they're switching the shape up here. Other ways are proportion and scale, so size, and then location and separation. More emphasis examples on color. You can see in this first image that they are trying really hard to make you look at the green tomato. They're keeping it in kind of a container full of red. Boom, they pop a green one in there, and that's immediately where your eye goes. With color, you can also do lighter versus darker areas. They have a little bit more pinky, warm pastel colors in the middle. So that way you look at her, and there's also light hitting her, so she's a little bit brighter. And then in the background, they have kind of darker green colors, less light hitting, so you're more likely to look at her. Over here, lots of different colors happening, but we have really bright, vibrant colors in the middle versus some dull, darker colors around the umbrella. So great ways to emphasize the color here. Emphasis with proportion or scale. You can make something incredibly large, bigger than its normal proportions would be, and we are immediately going to look at that because it's not normal, right? You don't usually see a chick this size. Other ways you can do it is you can just make it slightly bigger or slightly taller, like these two down here, or you can make it slightly smaller. Emphasis with location or separation. Ways you can locate or separate something to make it stand out. You can put something up front in the middle. So if it's up front close to us or in the middle, we are more likely to look at it. You could have something higher up than everything else. This hill is the highest hill in here. So we're more likely to look at what's on top of that hill. You could separate an item away from other items. We have a lot of space between this one coin and all the other coins, kind of forcing us to look at the one here, also closer to us. Down here again, we have the figure closest to us. She's almost in the middle, and she's almost centered. She's away from all other items here. Emphasis with shape. You can reuse the same shape over and over again, and then to emphasize a spot, you could make a different shape. You could make a circle with a bunch of squares. You could, same thing up here, have a triangle with a bunch of different circles, star with some rounded shapes. This one is a really good example. We have a lot of like curvy, wavy lines happening here, and we have some really straight lines for this shape. You could do curvy and wavy and then one straight area. Examples on sketchbook covers of how they emphasize something. This student used bright colors versus dark colors. They really wanted the flames in the front to stand out, so they kept them really bright and everything in the background really dark. This student centered what they wanted to stand out. Same thing here. Centered. Colors are happening again, where they have greens all the way around, and then they have purple in the middle, trying to make that area stand out a little bit more. This one too with the orange. Thinking about proportion or scale, we have this figure being the largest thing on the cover, so we look at that one first. Same thing with the shoe. It is the largest item out of all of these, so we look at it first. And then the circle record with the name is the biggest item on here, so we look at it first. Emphasis with location or separation. This student decided to emphasize their name by separating it from all other elements here. This student wanted to emphasize kind of this middle card. They kept it a little bit lighter, brighter, everything in the back, and then they centered it. And then this student here really loved NFL, and so they centered the NFL logo and then tried to put kind of like this white, colorful halo behind it to even brighten it up, pull your eye in this direction. Emphasis with shape, again, changing the shape will help kind of pull our eye to one area. So each of these students did squares or rectangles with those straight lines in the background, and then switched it up with a circle somewhere. That way our eye would look at that area first. Okay. That is the end of this. Please make sure that you fill out your vocab words here. And then I want you to start thinking about your cover. What 1 to 3 colors are you wanting to use? Remember, black and whites don't count against you. What type of balance are you going to use? Are you going to use radial? Are you going to use symmetrical or asymmetrical? What are you going to emphasize? Is it going to be your name? Is it going to be a symbol? Is it going to be your pet? How are you going to emphasize it? Will you do it with color, with scale? And then what themes are you incorporating? What 1 to 3 themes? Okay. If you have not watched the other video where we do the demo, please head there next.